Welcome to the Joy Work Show, the podcast that goes beyond the surface of business, right to the heart, to explore the real joy and the stories behind success. Not just the moments of celebration, but the challenges that pave the way for them. Hiya, I'm Diane, and here we know that joy isn't just about the good times. Often, the greatest joy comes right after the greatest challenge. And today's conversation feels especially important for anyone building something long term. I'm joined by Natalie Mackenzie, known as the cognitive strategist, and we are diving into something that does not get talked about enough in entrepreneurship: your brain and its health. Natalie brings a deep background in cognitive rehabilitation and brain science. And in this episode, we explore what it actually means to build a business with your long-term cognitive health in mind. We talk about sleep, stress, chronic illness, accountability, routines, and the small daily decisions that either support or sabotage your focus and performance. This is not a productivity hacks conversation, it is a sustainability conversation. Because if your brain is your greatest asset in business, then protecting it is not optional. But as always, it's so much better to hear from the guests themselves. So let's go. Hi, Natalie, and welcome to the Joy Work Show. I am so thrilled that you are joining me today, and I'm also thrilled because I get to find out all about you the exact same time as our audience, because we've just met. So, as always, it's better to hear from you. So tell us who you are, what you do, and how you got here.
Yeah. So I'm Natalie Mackenzie. I'm also known as the cognitive strategist, among other things, which we'll go into. So my hat today is my cognitive health and brain health strategy hat. So I work with people that run businesses, entrepreneurs, leaders who are struggling with kind of productivity, decision making, brain fatigue, all of that sort of stuff. But I also come at it from an angle of long-term brain health. So my background goes quite far back. So I have a degree in psychology, a bachelor's in psychology, a master's in cognitive neuropsychology. And since I was 21, I've worked in brain injury rehab primarily. And when I was 24, I set up a brain injury rehab service, which provides cognitive rehab assistance to support individuals living with brain injury. So by trade, I'm a cognitive rehab therapist, and I've scaled the business, which is 20 this year, which is
My goodness,
crazy.
well done. Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing. Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, so lots of celebrations this year. So I have scaled that. I employ about 80 staff. I have a big senior leadership team, management team. There's about 18 of us that are office based. And a couple of years ago, I kind of pivoted a little bit. So obviously I still run the organization. I still do primarily brain injury work full time. A couple of years ago, I set up a brain injury membership for people with brain injuries who can't access the likes of our specialist, more expensive services. And that kind of brought me into the online world a bit, more of the passive income side and memberships, and that very different world, the more corporate, I guess. It's not
Yeah,
corporate, but the more bigger business side of
yeah.
things. And then about a year ago, because I love brains and I'm a massive brain geek and I am a business owner and I was spending a lot more time with business owners, I was like, do you know what? I actually love doing cognitive brain health type strategy works. I'm also a business strategist and I've got my lived experience of running a business. So that's what I do as well. So I just like to run 3 businesses at once.
Yeah, it sounds like you're not busy at all. I mean,
Not at all.
it's so interesting to me from the brain point of view, because I think we take it a little bit for granted, our brain,
Yes.
until something happens that perhaps you can't take it for granted anymore. Do you find that? Do you find that even coming into the business space, and you're working with entrepreneurs and things, and I think it actually probably crosses all health,
Yeah.
but I definitely think from a brain health perspective, I think as entrepreneurs, we definitely are taking it for granted. Have you found that with?
100%. And that's kind of like my mission, because the more time I was spending around business owners that weren't in my brain injury niche, which is a small niche,
Yes.
I was like, gosh, none of you are thinking about this long term. And obviously I've worked in brain injury since I was 21. So I'm aging myself massively, nearly 25 years, 24 years. And I've spent my whole life basically working with people who have lost the capability and capacity and are unable to rely on their brains anymore because they're significantly damaged. And there's nothing like that to really make you realize, A, the fragility of it, B, how amazing it is, and C, what rehab and habituation and learning can do for a brain in terms of getting people to where they want to be, whether that's through a traumatic injury or through new habits and understanding your brain more. It kind of crosses, but nobody was thinking about it. Mental health, yes, really important. Physical health, everyone's talking about that now as well, and mental health, which is great. But I kind of come at it from a more kind of neuropsychology, neuroscience perspective of really going a bit more granular about what's actually happening in there and what people are doing now from a work and business perspective and how it's going to impact them long term, potentially from a brain health perspective, because there is no point all of us doing what we do now if we can't enjoy it when we're 60, 65. So what's the point? And I think people think, we do weights and, particularly women, now we're all into strength training so that we know we've got strength in our 60s and 70s. But actually, what are people doing from a brain health, brain strength perspective, other than just all of those other things, which do benefit, but they're not. I want people to go more.
Yeah. So that's what I was going to say, because obviously as entrepreneurs, and definitely whether you're in the online space or the traditional business space, it doesn't really matter because everybody's in the online space from a consumption point of view. And there's so much information about wellness and strength training and looking after your diet and, eating in a way to help inflammation and everything else within the body. So we've got all of that thing. So we know, and we're told, that it will help your brain, go for a walk for your mental health, go for a walk for your brain. And that is so familiar to us now and parts of all of our daily lives. But how different does it look like with you? How does that go next step where it's like, yeah, all that exercise and things going to help you? Of course it is. It's going to keep your body and your mind young. But what does it actually look like when you're talking about training your brain and what we should be doing as business people and as humans, really, not just business people?
They all cross this over. So all of those things are great for brain health, but no one kind of says why. So they say it's great for mental health, but why, other than
Why?
you're outside? So I explain why. So for instance, the one that you said about going for a walk, what you're doing there is you're exposing yourself to sunlight, you're stimulating your pineal gland, which aids melatonin production, which aids sleep. Simple. Things like that. As well, you're obviously getting the physical exercise, you're increasing your blood flow, which increases blood flow to the brain. If you go for walks and say you listen to a podcast or something you want to learn, you're aiding your learning because you're stimulating the hippocampus at the same time, which we know exercise coupled with learning, better outcomes, you encode better, you store better, things like that. I like to give people more base knowledge about why it is that people are saying that you should do these things, because often you find as people are like, well, yeah, that's great, but why? I mean, maybe it's because that's me. I'm like, well, tell me why. Don't just tell me to do something. Tell me
Absolutely.
why
Yeah.
I need to do it, because I'm not going to do it otherwise. I need a buy-in. And then
Yeah.
I add the extra layer on. If you're not getting outside in the sunlight, even if it's a cloudy day like today, if you're not doing exercise, you are going to impact your sleep. If you don't sleep well, you're not filtering out all the crap and the plaque and having all the lymphatic drainage. That impacts your brain health long term, because we know that is a poor sleep is a risk factor for things like dementia. So everything has a knock-on effect. And then as business owners, we work too much. We don't prioritize all the things that we know. But actually, I talk about why not taking breaks actually impairs cognitive function. Why task switching, which I can never say, I was very proud of myself, I managed to say at that time, how that slows down productivity because the brain needs to catch up. Understanding, again, related to sleep, how our bodies run in particular cycles throughout the day, when to do things when our brain is most cognitively awake, as it were, when not to make big decisions, when not to do long, tedious tasks. Everything that we do day to day links back to a cognitive behavior. All of it.
So honestly, talking about brains, my brain is like buzzing with all the things that I want to ask and want to find out. Is everybody, so you talked about a day. So if people are listening to this the same as me, thinking probably don't take enough breaks. I have changed quite a lot, which I'll go into shortly, but and thinking about my day and thinking about how I structure task switching is definitely a problem for me. But is everybody the same from that point of view on their day in terms of when they should make big decisions, when they should put certain tasks in their diary, or is literally everybody different depending on?
Everyone's slightly different based on your circadian rhythm. So your body and brain run in 90-minute rhythms. So depending on when you go to sleep, if you're a lark, if you're a night owl, your rhythm will be slightly different to another, but it runs on the same rhythmic system. But some people might be better in the morning if you're a lark, some people work better in the evening. But even to go more granular, people will just think I'm an owl or a lark. But actually, I look at, even if you're a lark, you'll have peaks and troughs in your 90-minute rhythms, which is why breaks are important. And learning that is really, really important. Really, I get a lot of people that say to me, oh, I'm just really, really good when I hyper focus for like 4 hours and I get into something. I'm like, yeah, me too. But I tell you, we're not as productive as we could be if we stopped and started again on the same task. So everyone's slightly different. And yeah, if you're a lark or an owl, your behavior will be somewhat different depending on how much sleep you get as well, because that then shifts when you're most productive in the day. Caffeine use has an impact, how much people are relying on caffeine. People that potentially don't get up and out and about. Cortisol dips in the afternoon are also dependent on environment, caffeine, sleep. People have to really go quite deep into fully understanding exactly how their body system and brain system works on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So then people can integrate those patterns as the day goes on.
Honestly, it is fascinating. The reason I said at the start that I think people take it for granted is I have chronic illnesses. If anyone's listened to this podcast, they'll know that I've spoken about it before. One thing I haven't spoken a lot about, I think I might have mentioned it once, is as part of my symptom processes over the last couple of years, I've been having some what are now possibly neurological issues, and I've started having MRIs. And honestly, I went for an MRI. It took the best part of a year for the referral to come through to an appointment. And I didn't even chase it because when they said they were referring me to neurology, because of my other chronic illnesses, I was almost poo-pooing it. Like, I know it's like I've got endometriosis and other issues there. And I was like, I think it's that. I think it's trapping nerves in my back. That's what I think it is. That's what. So I was almost like, I'll go, but it wasn't something that I was like the way I would chase my other referrals. Went for the MRI. Was it? People said to me, "Were you nervous about the MRI?" I was like, "No, it's just something I've got to do." I wasn't, but I wasn't thinking of an outcome. I was literally just going for it, and then I got a phone call. And then I got a phone call that there has been changes in the brain and they needed to look at it further. I then had to go for a lumbar puncture and I'm still in the process. So that was end of last summer time.
Gosh.
So yeah, so lots and lots of symptoms. I had another MRI just 2 weeks ago to see if there's been any progression of anything. So there's no like diagnosis or anything like that. It could have been a virus, an inflammation. It could be to do with everything else. But obviously my symptoms and things are still there. So the reason I say take it for granted is because I completely took it for granted. Even as somebody who's used to going to the hospital and being told there's something wrong, which I have for the best part of 20 odd years now, has been part of the course. I never dreamt that that would ever happen to me. And as far as I'm aware, there isn't anything, but there could be another diagnosis somewhere down the line. So the reason I'm asking is obviously I have started to make changes. I've started to prioritize my sleep. And I was making those changes anyway, because as a woman coming into a certain time in your life, you have to look at these things. And I truly believe I do think I've had operations and things, and I do need those things to keep me well. But I also believe there's things that I can be doing. I also believe that I can holistically, with the traditional medical that I need, I can look at my diet, I can look at the way I'm living my life, I can look at my consumption of alcohol, I can look at my sleep better and not take those things for granted. So when you were talking about sleep, I was like, yeah, that is, I mean, how important is sleep?
Oh, I mean, my line is sleep is God. And this is the thing, and I mean, that's really scary. I think anything that relates to the brain, people just go, that's
Well, I
terrifying.
did, and I remember one particular phone call with the receptionist, and she was one of those wonderful NHS gatekeeper receptionists.
My favorite.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember saying to her, I know you're dealing with people who have brain problems every day. And I know there's probably people that, and I was a lot angrier than this, and I know there's people that are probably like so much worse than me. But this is this is it. I don't, I'm scared because I
Yeah,
wasn't expecting it. You've now phoned me and told me I have markers on my brain. That's not normal as
yeah.
far as
And yeah,
aware.
yeah. People, it's a very scary thing. And even in my brain injury work, it's that whole hidden disability side of
Yes,
things, like chronic illness, brain injury. No one can tangibly see what's happening inside their brain. And honestly, if I was clever enough, and I've said this my whole career, if we could just have, like, if our bathroom mirror could be like a clever MRI scanner that meant that you could see changes happening inside your brain at a neuronal level. I mean, I'd be a billionaire and it would be brilliant, but it would just be so helpful for people because you can't tangibly see. And yet you might have symptoms like you have, and lots of people I work with have that, you've got neurological symptoms, maybe pins and needles or
that's exactly what I've
weaknesses,
got.
all of that sort of stuff, which can have a lot of meanings. And there are changes that happen in the brain that mark the brain that are age related. I've got those. I've had lots of investigations for neurological things like MS and all of the things, and nothing ever really comes back. But people are scared of it. And I have the problem, of course, that when I go for brain scans, I know too much.
Yes.
And then I want to see my scans, and then I see something and I'm like, wow, what's that? Anyway, but that's an
Well, he
aside.
showed me my scans and I was like, mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Kind of same as when I was pregnant and looking, going, yep, don't know what I'm looking at. You can tell me, you can tell me what it is, but I still don't know what I'm looking
Yeah,
at.
I think this is a little bit of knowledge, a lot of knowledge in these situations to be a bad thing. But
Yes.
to go back to your question about sleep, it is, and I don't want to be another person that harps on about sleep, but honestly, from a brain health perspective, it really is so important. And like you say, when we get to a particular season in our life, years ago when I was younger, like many listeners, sleep was like, yeah, whatever, don't really need a
Yeah.
lot of sleep. At uni, I probably had like 5, 6 hours at most, thinking I was absolutely fine. And people wear lack of sleep often as a badge of honor, like, I don't need a
This
lot
is
of
it.
sleep.
They totally wear it as a badge of honor.
Yeah. And it's absolute rubbish. The evidence. So I've done training in CBTI for insomnia. So I've done a lot of sleep training for don't want to say normal, for non-injured brains, as well as like specialist populations. So neurological, chronic illnesses, all of that sort of stuff. And the overwhelming evidence is that anything less than 6 hours, terrible,
Mm-hmm.
really, really bad for you long term. To the advised legal limit for lorry drivers is 5 hours. You're sleeping for less than that, and you're not cognitively functioning at a level to
Mm-hmm.
do something like driving. And
Mm-hmm.
I know when I had my second daughter, she only slept for 45 minutes at a time all through the night. And I remember driving to some god awful baby class one day, and I pulled out at the bottom of our road, and I hadn't judged the car speed coming enough, and this car nearly crashed into me. And that moment I was like, I cannot drive on this little sleep.
Yeah.
I'm dangerous, I'm not functioning. Dumped the car kind of at the side of the road, walked to where I needed to be. But I think the only time that we really appreciate the impact of poor sleep is when we have kids,
Mm-hmm.
but or people with insomnia, of course, which is slightly different. But people that think and almost kid themselves that they can cut their sleep because they've got to work really hard and they're growing a business, and I work full time and I work into the night and then I get up early in the morning before the kids go to school. Yeah, great, short term. But if you're not sleeping, you are literally not doing any of the things that your brain needs to clear itself up. So when we sleep, the brain filters out plaque and debris and all the proteins that it doesn't need, all the rubbish that it's built up. And if that doesn't get filtered out, it stays there. And that's a problem. Also, if you don't sleep, you can't, that's when we encode. That's when we take all the information from the day, those, 64,000 decisions that we make in a day, and decides to do, stuff with it. But if you don't get enough sleep, then all those decisions, or even half of them, let's take half of them into the next day, you're already cognitive overload. You're already on the back foot. You're already foggy. You haven't encoded all the stuff. You haven't put it into the filing system. So then you think further down the line, you've got a memory problem when actually you never encoded it in the first place. And then that starts to impact mental health, productivity, decision making, mood, all of the things. Nearly everything can be linked back to sleep.
Well, one, I'm really glad that I'm addressing it then, because I really think, because it is, and it was something that it was one of the things when I thought, right, I'm really going to start looking after myself. And you go to the obvious place, I'm going to move more, I'm going to watch what I eat, I'm going to have more water, I'm going to do all these things. But I have really, like, the sleep has been one of the biggest changes, because I did where my need, or the belief that I was making up that I could survive on little sleep because I could get up and function.
And
And obviously I was younger and stuff then as well. And since I've had my children, my first slept like a dream. My second came and ruined all of that. And as they do. It's one of the things about having the kids, and when we talked about sleep, and when I said I was going to prioritize my sleep, I was like, well, I prioritize the sleep for the children. Like, ever since I've had babies, I was one of those that, it used to be a joke in the family. I'm with my partner's family, because I'd be like, no, this is their bedtime. And then I have bath and I wind them down and I get them ready for bed and I get them ready for sleep, and they know what's happening. And then, so when I did have generally good sleepers, people are like, well, how do you doing it? And I'm like, well, we just have bedtime and sleep time. And if they have a bad night, I'll be in with them in their bedroom, but they stay in their bed. And I was like, but why don't I do that for me? Why
such
don't
a
I do
common
that?
story.
Yeah, like, why don't I that? Why am I rushing, like sitting downstairs, watching something, working too late, staying on my phone, not having that ritual to look after myself and get ready for bed? Where is my bit of that? So now I do that, and I actually have it set in my phone to tell me to go to bed, to start the process. Not just like, it's not like, so even on the nights where I'm like, I think I could stay up a bit later. Like, no, no, you're not. You're going to go and do your ritual, and whether it's skincare or my herbal tea or light a candle and read my book or whatever it is, then that's what it is. And if I want to watch some TV in my bed, I have to go to bed even earlier. And it has to be
Excellent.
something
You're great.
intentional.
You're a good patient. Well done.
But that's
But it's hard,
literally,
isn't it? You have to
yeah,
be very, very tough with yourself. It's not easy. And
no,
again,
it's
it's
a brand new habit.
yeah. And we know habit formation is really hard. And we know, particularly as women, particularly as mums, we do kind of, put ourselves quite far down the list. But actually, again, going back to what I said in the beginning, we did it for our kids when they were kids, but we want to be here well for our kids as
Yes.
well. And maybe that's the shift. Maybe again, as we come into a season of our life where we're slightly older and things have changed, you start looking more into the future and what your kids are going to need then, whereas when they're little, we're in rearing, kind of keeping a child alive mode,
Yeah.
which means that our own needs go offline because that's not the brain's priority. Evolutionary speaking, it's to keep a child alive,
Yeah.
so we don't matter really. We've got a job to do. And then obviously as they get slightly older and you see that actually, okay, they are alive, they're doing all right, things tend to shift a little bit. And it's an interesting kind of thought that potentially it's because we start looking forward to the impact on our children that again maybe is the catalyst. Maybe we're still not thinking about it for ourselves.
Mm.
It's still that kind of external motivator that so many people need. And whether or not you've got a neurodiverse brain or a neurotypical, we often aren't motivated to help ourselves as much as we are for an extrinsic motivation,
Mhm.
which has a big impact on our ability to build those habits and how strict we are with ourselves. And I think from your perspective, when you've had to live with chronic illnesses and you've had to look at, you've had that there as a constant, I guess you've got more evidence to say, if I don't do X,
Mhm.
I will feel like Y,
Mhm.
and Y isn't a nice feeling. So I think unintentionally you've habituated over all that time to
Mhm.
have to turn inward and go, I have to do this, otherwise the outcome will be this. And it's great to hear, sleep loves routine, and the fact that you go at the same time, whether or not you think you can or not, sleep will love you for that. Your brain will love that. But other people potentially find that much more difficult and are like, yeah, but I'm awake and I've got this thing to do for work tomorrow, or it's maybe due next week, or I've got a great idea and I'll just start doing something. And you having those kind of external strategies and scaffolds in place to give you the reminders is what people need.
Yeah.
Whether or not you're someone that needs reminders or not, we all need an external prompt to just.
Well, it's that because I need to remind myself, because particularly and it's that thing, suppose with the chronic illnesses, like when I was younger, I was just rubbish. I still just did what I wanted to do. I didn't pay attention, and then
Diane.
I would pay for it. But obviously then I had children. I did have my children slightly later, so they are still young. But as my symptoms were getting worse over the last 18 months, I was like, I can't live like this for them anymore. I can't have my energy do that. It got to the point that they were saying, oh, mummy's silly body and stuff like that, because we'd have to explain on certain days that my energy levels weren't there, or I was in particular pain or something like that. And I was like, yes, that's our reality and that's what they need to do. But there's also things I can do to help myself. So why wouldn't I try? Why wouldn't you want to? So yes, it is that external thing to do, but I still need that reminder, and I think lots of parents, although business owners and parents, I'll just stay up and get that thing done because it's going to make me feel better tomorrow. Or parents of like, but this is the only time I get to myself.
Yeah,
I don't want to
100%.
waste it sleeping
And I
when
get it. I
actually,
get it. And I always say I am not by any means perfect, and I don't get it right all the time. And I never profess to say to people, if you don't do this, you're going to end up with dementia at 60. This is all about just looking at kind of just thinking about things a bit differently and putting it at the priority list and
yeah,
not having to get it right all the time, because life is for living as well.
yes. But surely it's like everything else, it's having that balance.
Yeah.
Where if you're prioritizing it more often than not, then the nights where you decide, if you get the opportunity to go wild and stay out all night, then that's not going to have as big an impact if you were doing it every weekend,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
not prioritizing in the week when you should be going to bed and staying up on the laptop and things like
Yeah.
that.
And it is just appreciating as well. If there's a bad night, like there might be listeners that have young kids and they're like saying, which I hear all the time, yeah, great, but I can't sleep because my kids are young. I
Yeah.
get that. I've been there. You've been there. It's difficult. That interestingly, the brain kind of it is impacted to the same degree, but our brains are so flipping clever that it kind of knows when we're in maternal mode, and it behaves differently and it responds differently. But I'm talking about kind of like slightly longer term than that. Don't worry if you're listening to this and think, oh God, because my kids don't sleep and I don't sleep, it means I'm going to end up with dementia. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is it's just try to make some small changes, but also appreciate and understand that if you have a bad night with the kids, or you have a bad night because, I don't know, it's too hot or there's noise outside, or I have the most annoying dog next door who literally doesn't shut up. Things like that. Just understand that you need to adapt your day after.
Hmm.
If you've got, you know, like my day tomorrow, my Wednesday tomorrow, God knows how this has happened, but I have a 10-minute break from 9 till 7 tomorrow.
Yeah.
And
I've
I'm the
I've
person
had
that
those
talks
days.
about, yeah, and I'm the person that talks about, having breaks and productivity, but it is what it is because I'm out at events for other days. But if I don't sleep well tonight, I will have to adjust my task list tomorrow. I will have to prioritize and go, right, cognitively, I am not capable of today. And it's not that my brain is failing me. But if I try and push through, I will make bad decisions. I'll go on a call and say something stupid. I won't have the information that I need. I won't be able to remember and refer back to really important points that I need to bring up in a meeting. And I know that. And that's kind of what I want people to start thinking about.
Yeah.
Adjust if things haven't been right.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It makes complete sense. It does. It makes complete sense because it's also something because I've done it far too many times like you that I look at my diary and I'm like, how am I going to do that? Why is my calendar allowed that to happen? Never mind, I've not even noticed that it's happened type thing. And I now have to make sure that I have lots of gaps in my diary so that if it is a bad day, because you're watching this, you probably wouldn't know there's anything wrong with me at all. And there's lots of days that you wouldn't dream of that. And if you watch me on social media, you'd be like, illnesses what? I mean, she's gallivanting, she's out here, she's running after her kids. But that's just the reality of living with chronic illnesses. But there's also days that I can't really get out of bed or go off the sofa. So I have to have that movement because I'm running a business. I've got 2 young kids. You know, I've got a busy life. And I have to make sure I have the time in the calendar because I can then do the things. I can turn up for my podcast episodes. I can turn up for my clients. I can turn up for my business. I can pick my kids up from school. But I then make sure that if I need to go and just have a cup of tea for 45 minutes, and not necessarily have a nap or anything like that, it's not as extreme as that, but it's just that rest in that space so that I can be at my best at all of the times. And like you say, I don't get it right all of the time, but it's that some of the time is good enough and just having a little bit of that control in that space. So if you could say to anything, if people listen to this, majority will be business owners, what should we be looking at when we're thinking about our day-to-day basis for our brain health?
So it is avoid those days like ours, to mine to mine.
Yeah.
Do what you do. Make sure. So I even teach this. You know, my calendars are meant to be set up so there's like buffers either
Yes.
side. You know, little things like that are really, really helpful. But generally speaking, and again, for those of you who were like, oh God, I can't do that. That means I won't get anything done. Our brains shouldn't really be focused for more than 40 minutes at a time without taking some sort of break. And that can be 5 minutes, it can be 40 minutes. This is what we're all terrible at, and I admit. We often think that if we're not doing, we're lazy
Yeah.
and that we then feel guilty that there's too much to do.
Yeah.
But I want people to reframe that and just think this is for your optimal productivity. If you stop, you will get more done, which seems, you know, contradictory, but it's true. You need to put more breaks in. You need to get away from what you're doing and come out of that hyper focus. You are kidding yourself if you think you're super, super productive. I challenge people to kind of take the breaks and then get to the end of the day and see how much you have actually achieved in terms of task list. I'm a big fan of time blocking as well. I think
Yes.
time blocking is really, really helpful, but time blocking with fun put in. So
Mm-hmm.
people will time block and they'll only time block tasks. So they'll just time block all the things they have to do, but don't actually put in stuff that maybe brings them a bit of joy or happiness or makes them laugh, anything like that. If it's not a break, you know, maybe people can reframe, okay, if you're not going to take a break, do something. What I do is I'll go and listen to a podcast or something for like 20 minutes. It just takes my brain away to something, because I love learning, it's my thing.
Yeah.
Something that takes my brain away from the concentration that I have that makes me feel good. You know, I don't listen to like anything political or newsy in that break time, nothing that's going to annoy me,
Yes.
pee me off, anything that's going to get me all aggravated, which is easily done. You know, things like that. Just people aren't doing that. They're not putting in those bits into their days. Obviously, I have worked with so many people that say, I don't even drink water. I forget to drink water. You know, I forget to have my lunch. Again, I have been there in the office, even as early as last year. People would bring me food because they're like, Nat, you haven't moved
Mm-hmm.
for like hours, and are you going to go and get some food? And I'm like, yeah, I'll go in a minute. And now they now make me go. They come in, knock on my door, and they're like, get out.
It's your time.
It's
40
your time
minutes.
to get
Go.
out. Yeah. And even I, who know exactly all the things that I should be doing and teach people to do, still need help with that. So you are going to have to put in effort. You are going to have to put in external scaffolds. Mine tend to be other people. I've got a big office, people in there. They have permit. given them actual permission to say to me, get out.
Well, it's that
Things that,
accountability. We all need it, and we all need that accountability. Like, whenever I'm doing anything, I make sure that everybody in the house is aware that this is what I'm doing and this is why I'm doing it. I need your support and I need your help and I need your cheerleading and I need everything in between because it's that it goes back to what you said at the start about why you're doing it. It's not just I'm going to bed early because I want to get away from all of you. It's just
it's a nice little extra.
yeah, I'm enjoying a really good book right now. But it's that this is why I'm doing it so that I've got more energy tomorrow and I can be a better version of myself and, my health will be better. But like you say, it's that why, isn't it, of doing it, not just, oh, this is what somebody's told me I need to do, so I'm just going to do it, because if we
Yeah.
don't, it's like anything, and we'll hear it in all areas of business, never mind life, your why needs to be deep enough that you actually care about it to do it. Because if you don't, there's no connection
No,
between.
absolutely. And I think that the hardest thing, I think, is when people think, because of the narrative online and on a lot of social medias, is that you have to be successful, you have to go hard. And it's such bad messaging, and
Mhm,
people will justify it by saying, I know that I have to do this in order to meet my goals and to be successful. There is no other way. I'm willing to do it. And again, the busy badge of honor that us as business owners wear, that is our normal conversation starter. How are you? Yeah, busy.
mhm,
All right. Like, we don't want to be doing that. But I think this idea that you have to just give up everything and sacrifice everything in terms of your well-being to be successful really, really irritates me, because
mhm,
it's a bad messaging. And I can see why people do it, because they think it's motivating. And I've had to work hard and I've been in the doldrums and I've lost everything and I've had to work my way back up. Great. Brilliant. Well done. But at what cost?
yeah. But I think it's that thing as well, because when people talk to me or when people say, or like go back to that conversation of with the sleep thing and people saying, but I just don't have time to do that. And I'm like, well, sacrifices have to be made somewhere. And at the minute, I'm willing to sacrifice an hour at night for me to make sure I get better sleep than for me to sacrifice my health.
And if
And so it's not about that, like, building business does take sacrifice. It does take really serious choices and decisions, but it's not a detriment to your health, surely. And like you say, you've
surely.
got a busy day tomorrow and those days, and I'll have a day like that at some point soon too. But then I'll make sure the following day that I can recuperate, or I'll make sure that my sleep, I won't finish till 7, but I'll be making sure that that's it and I switch off and I still get to my bed at the same time as I'm trying to get to my bed and things like that. I just think when people are talking about sacrifices, yes, I make sacrifices every single day because I'm a busy mum of 2 under 5 with chronic illnesses. So there's loads of sacrifices I have to make,
Yeah.
but it might not be the badge of honor ones that people expect.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? And if anyone's listening, I'm a absolute stats geek. I love, give me scientific information any day. But if people are like that, if you look at the stats, things like chronic stress reduces your decision making capacity by about 40 to 50%.
Yeah.
So if you take that and you think of any given day, you've got 10 decisions to make. If I said to you half of those are going to be crap, you'd be like, well, what can I do about that? I don't want to make bad decisions. And you'd be like, well, that's because, you've been living in chronic stress for months on end. And everyone's different. Some people can live in that chronic state for longer than others. Some it hits within weeks, some it's months, but it can take months to years to recover.
Mhm.
Even, and again, poor sleep. Poor sleep can impact decision making by about 50%. So, you are doing yourself you're doing your brain and your business a disservice if you think that you can push through things like chronic stress, which often don't show up
Oh,
for a long, long time. I ended up with a lot of chronic pain. I still have, but it kind of started 3, 4 years ago, because I've worked my backside off for years, and eventually my body's gone, well, I'm super inflamed. I'm
yeah,
going to completely get in your way. I'm going
yeah,
to be there all the time causing you pain, which is going to take your brain away. And, I want you to think about me, type thing. And it shows up in our bodies and it shows up in our brain.
yeah.
And one of the scariest things, and this, well, I say scary, I don't want to scare people when I say this, but brain changes related to dementia can show up in the brain 20 years before any outward symptoms. 20 years you can start to be going through changes that aren't going to show up. So I'm 44, so potentially if I don't look after my brain now, there'll be changes happening that won't show up until I'm 64, when I'm meant to be in my lovely retirement
In your
time,
golden
enjoying
years.
my life, and I'm going to not have a clue where I am, what I'm doing, and that's what makes me just go, enough.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to be thinking about this, because the brain is so complicated, so brilliant, but so fragile. And if you don't, certainly all the work that I've done in brain injury, if you don't have control over how your brain functions, I don't think you've got very much.
No, absolutely. And as somebody who completely took it for granted until not even a year ago yet, and that first phone call was just like, okay, this is, even though I've had those phone calls before, but this felt different.
Yeah, it does. It really lands differently.
Yeah.
And I've had friends and, away from the brain injury world that have ended up with brain tumors, not necessarily from a lifestyle thing, of course, but
Yeah.
brain tumors, things like MS, other kind of neurological disorders that have hit them early. And they all say the same. And I guess it's the same, when people get diagnosed with things like cancer, people
Yes.
say, I should have looked after myself better. And it's not always about lifestyle. We know that, but certainly, I want to do everything to ensure that people just have it up there on the list of things to consider, to make sure that, we're putting ourselves in the best place. Otherwise, my other plan to make billions is to set up dementia care homes for entrepreneurs, which I think would be brilliant.
Yes. Absolutely. Do you imagine that would be some sort of circus
Wouldn't it? It'd
thing?
be brilliant.
Oh, it'd be absolutely mental. Absolutely mental. Kind of like the online space, to be perfectly honest.
I think it would be. Can you imagine? But they'd all be like, 30 years from now, all trying to outdo each other.
Nobody
Somebody's,
sleeping. Nobody
nobody
sleeping.
sleeping, everyone being mean, people stealing one thing it'd be brilliant.
Yeah, that scares me a wee bit, that thing. But so
But there we go.
if that
There's
isn't a
another reason.
reason to look after your brain, I don't know what is. Now, as you know, I ask everybody 3 joy questions before they come on to the show. So we'll start with the joy spotlight. A favourite thing that has shaped your life, business, or work?
Well, for me, I love learning. I think I already said that. I'm an
Yeah.
absolute geek. I have so many certifications. It's unreal. And that classic learn, 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 learn. It's kind of what's led me kind of sideways into the kind of the business side of things. Obviously I was an accidental business person. Didn't have a flipping clue at 24 what I was doing. I've massively scaled a company, learned how to do strategy while still learning all about the brain. My big thing is that I must learn something new every day. And that's my advice to everybody. Even if it's a random fact, you've got to learn something new every day, because also from a geeky perspective, when you learn, you're promoting neuroplasticity, you're looking at your neurogenesis, you're using your hippocampus. It's one of the best things you can do that I feel brings me kind of joy, that I've got knowledge.
Yeah.
That's a big thing for me. But I don't, it's ironic actually. I don't really think that I do until I spend time with friends and they're like, oh my God, you just know so much about
No.
so many things. Like, I just like to, not politics. I hate politics. I rely on my husband for that. I'm like, give me the weekly review
Yeah.
of what's happening in the world, because I don't want to read it. But yeah, honestly, and I still want to do my PhD, but actually I've had to go, enough now.
Yeah.
Like, there's
You need
only
to
so
sleep
much
at some
you can
point.
do. You need to sleep and you need to run, things like that. But yeah, and I think it's just brought me so much. And I love to teach people what I learn. And again, from a brain perspective, one of the best ways to maintain brain health is to teach what you've learned, because it encodes it in a different way. Yeah,
I was
that's my favourite.
listening to a podcast last week, and it was with a guy called Roger Frampton, and he's all about movement of the body and like your joints. So, but his type of exercise is not like lifting weights or cardiovascular. It's literally moving and using your joints, and the whole thing is use it or you'll lose it type thing. So as you're getting older, it's because we're sitting more, and of course our knees are going to like seize up because we've not walked and we've not moved and there's joints that we've probably not even used this week properly. And the brain should be part of that, surely.
Oh,
That
100%. If you
learning.
don't use it, if you don't use your brain, you will lose it. We know that there will be neuronal degradation if we don't. So I'm just pulling up my blankets and freezing in here like an old lady. If you don't use it, you will lose it. And this is partly why I love AI, but AI, I'm always saying to people, please use it responsibly.
Yeah.
Don't offload all your cognitive function to it. Keep your own critical thinking to you, because you need to use that. And I employ a lot of early 20-year-olds, and the way that their brains work now is so different, and I'm kind of a bit terrified. Brains are changing shape in younger generations because they're not having to use particular, very very slightly, of course, and but the way the kind of connectivity is happening, because we're not socializing in the same way. We're social creatures. We need to be around people. They're relying externally on things. So those neuronal connections aren't firing and wiring. Cells that fire together, wire together is the same that we have in neuro. And if you don't practice and repeat and consolidate, those cells don't fire and they don't get stronger, and you will lose that cognitive capability. So yeah, I would be learning until the day that I die in the old dementia care home that we're all going to live in.
But I think even with dementia patients, and I had a grandparent who had dementia, and obviously it wasn't fast, it was over a period of time, but the end was fast. It went from having a grandparent to not really having a grandparent to then her passing away with it. But we still tried. We would go, we would read books, we would take her out, we would talk to her, we would play music to her. And, and that was so important to us. And you could see the difference that it made. I know there's a whole conversation about funding for care homes and all of that thing and what time they have to do. But it's these things that can make a difference. When we took babies in, like the whole, not just my gran, but the other people would light up. They would all light up when they saw that. And I guess that's that social thing then and I just think it's so important. And I think, and you hear the stories of the music, and not just that it takes them back to their younger years and perhaps when they were meeting the love of their life or going out with friends and all of those types of things in certain times in their life, but just from that joy point of view as well, and reminding them because those parts are still alive.
Oh, 100%. And there's a lot of research, like America's quite good at this. There's kind of like whole care, they're not care homes, they're care villages where they're set in the 1950s that are the times that they remember. And there's other places where they've done a lot of work with bringing in fake babies, and
Wow.
they're much more functional. They'll be able to feed the baby and dress the baby, but can't do that for themselves. So again, you're activating different parts of the brain and the way that the brain responds to things. Music therapy is phenomenal. We do a lot of it in neuro, but again, the way that the brain processes and forms and recalls memories based on how music stimulates them and uses different part of the brain, again, phenomenally brilliant.
Just yeah, we just need more of it, don't we? The second question is the inspired by joy, a book or a mentor or a people person that is kind of stuck with you.
I would have to say it's all my brain injury clients, to be fair. I mean, they are such hard work. It's such a challenging population to work with. When I first started doing work, I used to get chased off estates in South London. I had a restraining order against one, had knives thrown at me, I got bottle. It was awful, awful. When you work with people, like I said earlier, who've had in an instant everything taken away in many many ways, when they are able to live independently, or they're able to make that spaghetti bolognese that they've been practicing for 18 months, or they're able to go back to work, whatever it might be, that for me is to see that is very very joyful. It can still be hard because they're not back to where they wanted to be, or they're not back to the person that they were, but they can still find joy in things. They can still find, sometimes it's not legal, sometimes it's not advised, and sometimes it's non-capacitous. But I kind of love that. And I kind of love, and again, when you work in that sort of population, you come across every type of person that you could ever think. And that person back prior to a brain injury was very much their own person, and just working within families like that and having the, what's the word? Being able, it's a privilege, to be fair, to be able to be part of people's recovery and finding what their joy is again in their life. And I don't think anything will beat that, to be fair.
No, I can't imagine anything would. And I suppose it's, like you say, it's that recovery, it's that story, it's them getting whatever life back that they can because something's taken away from them instantly, I would
Instantly.
imagine.
Yeah, and that's the kind of cruel nature of things like brain injury, is literally in an instant, you know, whether it's because someone's been in a car accident or an assault or
Yeah,
a neurological event like a hemorrhage or an aneurysm. It literally, one moment, then the next is entirely different, and your life's trajectory is suddenly very, very different.
yeah. There's lots of big events, isn't there, in life that's the before and the after, but I can't imagine there's anything quite as catastrophic as a brain injury.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. But yeah, and again, there's still happiness within it.
Yeah, absolutely. And people find new ways and new paths. And I've even like heard stories of people like, well, this was always meant to happen to me because I'm now doing this with my life. And they saw it as part of their journey. But I guess we're going back to that deeper why as well. If they can connect to why to get better, to do the rehab, to do, to work with people like yourselves to actually get better. But I imagine it takes a while for quite a lot to get there.
It does. It's a long process. I mean, I've got one client I've worked with for 19 years. I see him every Wednesday at 3 o'clock. It's like a family member, but it's a long old slog. But yeah, everyone's different though, and and that's why you need specialists to work with you to find your, reevaluate your values and your why, and really have that as your core reason to motivate you for recovery.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I love that. And the last one is the joy killer, the thing you would like removed from the world.
buffets.
Why?
They are awful, awful. Buffet mentality. Why is it a good idea that you have 6 or 7 different cuisines on one plate?
Yeah.
2, what happens to people when the buffet comes out? Why can't people queue anymore? Why do people have to touch the food?
I have to admit the thing of the cling film with the foil coming off and then there's people already there, like they've not
Yeah.
ate that day. I'll agree with that one.
It's awful. And then people just push in. It's when you get like an arm that comes like underneath you and just like takes the spoon. Honestly, when I go on holiday or I see anywhere with a buffet, I'm just like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I quite like them I would never, I don't mix cuisines. I can't get my head around it. And why we can have pasta, rice, potatoes all on one plate.
It is the thing, it's the same with barbecues though.
And that's a valid point.
Because I quite often say at a barbecue, so say somebody's doing, I'll be like, I'll have a bit of chicken and maybe I'll have a bit of fish and one of those kebabs. Oh, have you done sausages? Oh, I might have a sausage. If Ash said to me tonight, Diane, we're going to have chicken, fish, sausage, and a kebab, I'd be like, no, we're not. We're not putting all that on a plate. So I do understand that. I do understand, but I like a picky dinner.
I get it. I get it. You can have the picky dinner, but I think it's maybe I should say buffet mentality.
Yes, yes. I don't like
The
that.
And the other thing that really gets my goat, it's when I look at tables, like when you're in an all-inclusive restaurant and everyone's at the buffet. When the table is just piled high with food
Yeah,
that hasn't been eaten, I
yeah,
get so aggy. I'm
yeah.
like, and I get it. For my kids, I've got one kid that's a real picky eater. So I'm like, okay, buffets are quite good because
Sure.
she can try a little bit of everything, but don't fill the plate.
No. But I don't also understand, it's like, if it's a buffet that you can go up and down as many times as you like, go back up.
Yes.
You don't need to fill. Okay, so mine in this thing would be a carvery.
I see. I do like a carvery.
I can't do a carvery. So obviously I'm Scottish. They don't really exist in Scotland as far as I'm
Mm,
aware. It's not really a roast place. So when
yeah.
I came down here, I was I like a roast dinner,
Yeah.
but I can't do a carvery. And lots of English people have said to me there isn't a difference. There is.
Yeah. Again, it's the mentality.
Yeah.
Pile high. I mean,
Yes.
I love a Yorkshire pudding, so I love a
Mm,
roast
yeah.
carvery.
Yeah.
But maybe reflecting during this conversation.
Yes.
Maybe it's the wastage.
It's the wastage and the mentality and this amount of food. And I also think that can't be good for you. And I'm
God,
no
no.
mean. I love all the foods that are bad for you, and I have to work really hard at not having them.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It can't.
you don't need that volume of food on
Mountain.
a plate.
Yeah.
Yeah, carveries really
Yeah.
upset me.
Well, we're
But
not too
I love
dissimilar
a
then.
good, but I probably like a buffet in my own house or a house that I know that's quite relaxed. Or if I was, say, at an all-inclusive, I just take what I want and then I might go back up. So it feels like a treat, but I would never. The piling plates upsets me.
Yeah,
And that
pile and
makes
plates
we're
and
all,
people. The people that don't queue.
yeah, well, yeah, that. And like you say, an arm coming over and like trying to. Oh
Well,
dear. Yeah. Well, we've had lots of highbrow conversations, but I think that one might have been our best about the buffet and the carvery. If people want to come and find you, Natalie, and find out about the multitude of things that you do, lovely all to do with the brain, but where can they
yeah.
come and find you?
I hang out mainly on Insta as the cognitive strategist and also on my website, thecognitivestrategist.com, and also on Facebook. Well, intrinsically linked, aren't they? But yeah, that's the easiest way to get hold of me. I've got freebies on there. I've got quizzes. I've got downloads. Go get brain stuff and put it at the top of your list.
Yeah, the links will all be in the show notes. You can just go and click away and find Natalie straight away. Now, I don't let anybody go without asking the last question, and that is, what joy legacy would you like to leave behind?
Oh, that is a good question. Joy legacy. I think it would have to come back to my learning in terms of like just certainly for my kids and for everyone that comes into contact with me is just to make sure you find the joy in learning constantly.
Yeah.
I think don't ever stop learning. Don't stop being a kid either. Like and I know that sounds really twee and loads of people probably say it, but you have to just have fun, learn, look
Stay
after yourself,
curious.
stay curious. And I think that would be what I'd want everyone to think going forward long term. Does that work?
That absolutely works. And I think it's brilliant. And I think it's a great point to leave everybody with to keep that learning journey, because I think we give up sometimes, don't we? We think that we're too old or too this or too mum or too. And I think that when you actually look, there is so many older people doing so many wonderful things. And
So many. And they put many young people to shame.
yes, yes. And the ones that live are the ones that really live.
Oh yeah. I had an uncle that he went till 96 who went Scottish, my family's from Scotland, Scottish country dancing like 3 nights a week, was one of the happiest people I've ever met. And the only reason he passed away is because he fell and broke his hip and he didn't have his joy anymore. He didn't have the thing that
The reason to
kept
keep
him
going.
going. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it is. It's definitely true. So yeah, I think that's keep learning, keep curious, and keep going. I think is.
Yeah. 100%.
Thank you so much, Natalie. I've really, really enjoyed this conversation.
Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. As we come to the end of this conversation, and it's a conversation that has stayed with me since, I want to leave you with 3 takeaways. As we come to this end of this conversation, I hope it was as eye-opening for you as it was for me. And I want to leave you with 3 takeaways that have really stayed with me since my conversation with Natalie. First, your brain is not separate from your business. Sleep, stress, recovery, and daily rhythms are not personal extras. They are strategic foundations. Second, that small habits compound. Cognitive health, like so many other areas of business's life, is not about big dramatic changes. It is about consistent, supportive behaviours that protect your long-term capacity. And third, accountability matters. Whether it is in business growth or brain health, we are far more likely to follow through when we do not try to do it alone and when we fully understand what it is that we are trying to do. This episode is a reminder that sustainability is leadership, and joy in this context is building something that your future self can still enjoy and thrive in. If this conversation made you rethink how you are treating your energy, your sleep, or your stress, take it seriously. Your future brain and life well, thank you. Thank you for listening to the Joy Work Show. If you enjoyed this episode or want to make sure that you hear about future episodes as soon as they come out, I would love for you to subscribe to this podcast. It takes you 2 seconds. Just press the like, share, alarm, wherever you are listening or watching us. And it really does mean the world to us podcasters when people subscribe to our channel. And I am so thankful that you chose to spend time with me here today. And I'll see you in the next episode.